if you continue to see Bitcoin gain adoption, which it has a 15-year track record of doing, not owning it is a bad idea. You're going to see these companies outperform. And then other people are going to look around and say, how can I outperform? The world's a competitive place. Bitcoin is a great way to do it. And so the momentum just continues to gather.
What's going on, guys? K-Dub here with another episode of Crypto Zombie. Welcome back to the channel. Hope you're having a great day today. Now, last week was quite interesting. We saw the price rallying, attempting to get back up over 70,000. It was unable to get above that level, and that was leading into Trump's speech over at the Bitcoin conference. Now, some people saying it was a bit of a letdown. They were hoping that he would have been a little bit more pro-Bitcoin, saying he was going to buy Bitcoin, right? We had RFK Jr. saying if he was to be elected, he would start buying Bitcoin to add to the reserve, whereas Donald Trump said that he was basically just going to hold the Bitcoin that they had. So, yeah, it was a little bit of a mixed emotions from a lot of people. But again, you know, kind of the theme of what I've been trying to talk about all summer is that, historically speaking, summers are boring for Bitcoin. And what we're still seeing is a very range-bound Bitcoin. If we just look over at the chart on Blowfin, you'll see that we are back in this 61,000 to 71,000 accumulation range. And what's interesting is we have this move up, right? We have these 3 points of contact, and then as soon as we break it, we have that dump. We start another trend, right? We put in 3 points of contact, and then we break it, we come back down, right? And yeah, we've had this sort of, bear fake outs down here, but what are we doing right here? We have 1, 2 points of contact, and it looks like we're coming back down again. So really, if you could just take everything we're looking at with a grain of salt, what are we doing? We are consolidating, right? We have some fake outs to the top, some fake outs to the bottom. But again, overall, if you just ignore what's going on with the bull case and the bear case, just looking at the data in front of us, it is basically just accumulation. However, although some people are, as soon as the price falls, the bears come out again, that's it, the top's in, we're going down. Well, I got to talk about some legacy indicators, and these are things that we've talked about on this channel. If you've been following, this is nothing new to any of the subscribers out there, but we have a legacy signal that has just confirmed and fired off for Bitcoin. On top of that, there is another major indicator that we look at very often, which, of course, I can't give you an exact date, but it looks like at some point between, maybe a month to 6 weeks to 2 months, so sort of like six weeks to 8 weeks, it looks like we're going to have that confirmation as well. And this is why I'm saying ignore the noise. So I want to talk about all that today. And then also there's a rumor, speculation, maybe even call it a conspiracy, about what Trump had said about holding the Bitcoin reserves, that maybe the US government is going to look to front run that and actually sell Bitcoin before the election. I'll show you some charts, some data. You guys can let me know how you feel about that. But that's essentially what we're going to talk about today, guys. If that sounds good to you, you know what to do. If you're not subscribed, get subscribed. Turn on that bell notification. I don't make videos every single day, but when I do, you definitely don't want to miss out because I feel like I have a lot of important things to talk about. Now, interestingly enough, if you are following Metasignals is actually saying that this could possibly be a good area. Now, obviously, be careful with these stop losses down here because this is around 65.5. So again, these whales, they do look to stop hunt, okay? But for the most part, if you've been following Metasignals, they are pretty good with a lot of these. They're not all winners, but I would say that if you've been following this strategy, the majority, I would say most people are definitely in the profit zone. So if you are interested, check that out below, guys. It is in the description, and if you guys use the code ZOMBIE, you'll get 20% off. But I do recommend, if you can, the NFT right now is still available, and that gives you lifetime access, and that's paid with Ethereum. Ethereum's price is lower right now, so I would take advantage of cheap Ethereum to get that lifelong access. If you're interested, check that out below. So let's real quick talk about what this speculation is around the government possibly, maybe, looking to sell some Bitcoin.
It will be the policy of my administration, United States of America, to keep 100% of all the Bitcoin the U.S. government currently holds or acquires into the future. We'll keep 100%. This will serve in effect as the core of the strategic national Bitcoin stockpile
So this is sort of the correlation that they're saying, right? So you can see the United States holds about 213,000 plus Bitcoin, right? Now, if we come over here, there was a transaction, and because we have these wallets, we know who these wallets belong to. Not everybody, but this is the US government Bitcoin wallet, and it appears that they've sent around 29,800 Bitcoin. At the time that this was sent, that was worth about $2 billion. Now, why does anybody care that they're moving money out of the Mt. Gox wallet address that they confiscated? Well, Biden administration announces a new 1.7 billion lethal aid package, right? So some people are saying 1.7 billion lethal aid, we have $2 billion moved. Could this potentially be them looking to sell that Bitcoin? Obviously, nobody really knows. That this could just be a coincidence. Mike Novogratz, tone deaf anyone, moving Silk Road Bitcoin. Sorry, not Mt. Gox. I meant to say Silk Road Bitcoin. 2 days after Trump's pledge to not move them. This is just dumb. So again, this is where that speculation comes, where as we're seeing a 1.7 billion aid, and then we're seeing a $2 billion Bitcoin, 2 billion in Bitcoin being moved. This is where it's coming from. So is this sending some kind of fear throughout the space? Possibly, guys. But again, it's just noise, okay? All of this is just noise, right? We just like to look at the facts and what is going on. So that's why I kind of wanted to start out, number one, with the fact that we have over here, we have Bill Miller, and this is something very interesting. We had talked about the ETFs coming out, and we had talked about the fact that these guys, they want to see the track record, right, once these ETFs come out. And we said around the 6 to 8 month area, which is right where we are right now, we're in that sweet spot. That's when you're going to start to see a lot of this allocation. A lot of these people that were on the sideline, they were skeptical. They wanted to have that data to provide their clients like, hey, this is how Bitcoin has been performing since the ETF has been launched, right? And I showed you with Key Young Juice chart the other day, if you guys go back, that we were having inflows, and those inflows were not being recycled from the same wallets. Those were genuinely new inflows. So those are new participants coming into the space. And like Bill Miller was pointing out, more companies are actually looking to add Bitcoin to their balance sheet. And I think that, as you're having that momentum build up, at some point, you can only coil that spring for so long before you actually have that explosive move. And he pretty much backs that up in this interview that he had on CNBC.
There's always something new and cool happening in Bitcoin. And so I don't know if you saw just yesterday or the other day, Ferrari said they're now accepting Bitcoin for payments. But what I'm really excited about is the fact that at this year's conference, we now have additional companies coming out and saying, we're going to put Bitcoin on our balance sheet as a strategic treasury asset. And you haven't seen that before. Before it was MicroStrategy and they were doing this funny thing and, oh, it's working out. Well, now guess what? You're seeing other companies come to market and start doing the same thing. And from my perspective, if you continue to see Bitcoin gain adoption, which it has a 15-year track record of doing, not owning it is a bad idea. You're going to see these companies outperform. And then other people are going to look around and say, how can I outperform? The world's a competitive place. Bitcoin is a great way to do it. And so the momentum just continues to gather. Well, I think it's worth asking what their alternatives are. And the alternative is you can buy a treasury asset that whose white paper says it's going to depreciate at 2% a year at least. And if you look back at the history of the Federal Reserve, they printed approximately 6% supply growth over an incredibly long period of time. 6% supply growth, that just happens to correlate with the long-term growth rate of nominal GDP. What do you know? So here's the real deal. Bitcoin is the new global denominator for capital. So the problem it solves you don't have all of these politicians running around trying to curry for favor and redistribute wealth and change taxes and change all sorts of things. You get what you get. You get 21 million Bitcoin, and that's it. And so, we're incredibly optimistic about it over the long term as these dominoes continue to fall in favor of Bitcoin.
So I don't want to harp too much on the videos today. I really wanted to actually show you what's in the charts and why, again, I'm still not stressing. There is a factor that shows us that Bitcoin could go to a lower level, right? We've talked about this, and I'll show you in the charts why. But ultimately, I still, according to what I'm seeing, believe, and not even just what I believe, it's what the charts are showing me, that we are still in an uptrend. And I do believe we're going to see these higher prices, the 90,000, 100,000, maybe even some of these higher targets, $150,000 Bitcoin, etc. Right now, what we've had is a perfect retest off of this parallel channel, right? So we were basically in this channel, we had a little bit of a, you could say a bearish fake out here. And what happened is we came down, we had a fake out back into the channel, but what we did was we flipped this previous resistance right here into support. right? So, would it be possible to fall, back down into this channel? Well, again, the one thing that I said, I had one little negative tidbit, and this isn't even like a majorly negative tidbit. It's just that we have a CME futures gap down here at $58,790. Now, the reason that I bring this up is because you can call this a meme, you can call it a self-fulfilling prophecy. Of course, I don't know why this happens, but we do tend to fill these gaps. The majority of these gaps get filled. I believe there might only be one or two in history that have not gotten filled, but every other gap has gotten filled. So it has at least a 94 to 96% hit rate, right? And again, that is down here at around $58,790. So is that a possibility? Well, if we came back down and, you considered maybe something down here to be, the bear fake out, this whole thing to be the bull fake out, and then we came back down into this range, well, if we were to fall straight down today, that would put us at around $52,000. But of course, as time goes by, because it's an ascending channel, right? So what happens is as time goes by, you're not going to fall straight down, to these levels. What you're going to do is you're going to have something where maybe you bounce around like this, you come down, you retest it. And then look, if we were to retest the bottom of this wick right here, okay, and, this could bring us out to, the third quarter of the year, you could potentially have that retest. But ultimately, you are still in a bullish structure. And on top of that, if you come down here and look at what Market Cipher has been doing, you look at this right here, and what do you have? I mean, this is, look at these momentum waves, guys. You have a larger wave leading into a slightly smaller wave, leading into an even smaller wave, leading to even a tighter wave, right? You have the VWAP crossing up, and this is showing we're switching in from the red to the green. This is the money flow, and this is showing us that, yes, it may have slowed down temporarily, but you can see it's curving back up, and the momentum is still ultimately going to be pushing us to the upside, right? So just keep in mind that we have the CME futures gap. If we went down and we closed it and you had a crash or you saw Bitcoin down around 58,700, something like that, again, this is not enough for me to become bearish. Another thing to point out, didn't mean to do that. Another thing to point out is, if we just kind of have a quick, just kind of connect these. This is really rough. I mean, yeah, I guess you could bring it up here if you want to this area. All right. And you draw, this is very rough, guys. I know, don't critique it, but ultimately, what we're seeing is something that looks a bit like a descending broadening wedge, right? Now, I know some people will say, well, bring this up here, maybe it's more of a bear flag, or a bull flag, excuse me. But ultimately, my point I'm trying to make is that this looks like it could be a falling or a descending broadening wedge. Now, just historically, if you're a pattern trader, these are in fact, sort of, they tend to break out to the upside. This particular one shows it at the bottom of a range, but I've seen them at the top of the ranges, right? They usually accumulate. You have the lower lows, you have the lower highs. Everyone thinks that it's we're having a breakdown, a reversal in the markets, and it goes to the upside. By the way, like I said, this is showing you an example coming from a bearish move, but I've seen these in continuation patterns as well. And the other point I wanted to point out is it does seem like we've been waiting a very long time for this, but if we look at this consolidation period that we had between March of last year and October of last year, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 right months, and on the 7th month we had that breakout. Well, so far we've only had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've only had 5 months of this consolidation with a massive buy wick from this bottom area, right? So again, this could go for another 2 months. It could be something like this where everyone thinks that it's a fake out and then we continue to the upside. So if you have a look at this area of the Fibonacci extension, the 0.23, which is sitting at around $62,000, also pretty much corresponding with our 21 exponential, is showing us that maintaining above this area is very healthy. And also another signal that we tend to look at is these moving average crossovers. And you can see right here, generally the most bullish, right, is when you have them going from high to low. So you have the 200 on the bottom, followed by the 100, followed by the 50, followed by the 21 exponential. And when you get that perfect order, right, so you can see it goes from pink to blue to yellow to green, that's when you have the massive move. And you can see what we have right here. So far, we're good on the top, right? We have the 200, the 50, and the 21, but what we don't have is this 100. But if you have a look, what does this look like it's trying to do? It's slowly creeping up, right? So at some point, you're going to have that crossover, and you are going to have all 4 of these moving averages set up perfectly for that long-term that extreme bullish move that you tend to get really at the end of the markets, which is showing me that we haven't even seen the crazy move just yet, right? We did dip into the EMA ribbon, which you could argue, okay, we did it back here. That wasn't so great, but we actually fell below that on this move, and still, even though we fell below it, we had put in a higher high, and we never fell below this sort of lavender 89, right? And as you can see right here, yes, we fell into it, but we never fell down to this lavender. And also, another thing to point out is whenever we have the band twisting or flipping, so you have the higher moving averages moving to the lower side, for example, like here, right? You could see that was confirmation of the bear trend. Right here, confirmation of the uptrend. And we can go back in history, and I can show you this again and again and again and again and again, right? So you have the flip here. This is a little weird one only because COVID, this area really screwed up the charts. But for the most part, you get these flips and you get these massive moves. So again, this is showing me that there's more room for continuation to the upside. Now, here is the legacy signal that we did just have flash, and that is on the hash ribbons indicator. You can see we've had this area, this red, the crossover, and we got this buy signal. Now, we do not get a lot of these buy signals. They are very rare, but more so often than not, when we get these signals, what it means, it does not mean that we're going to go straight up, okay? It does not mean that we can't go down. But what it does mean is that more often than not, much more often than not, we never put in another low that was lower than the previous low that came before that signal. So that low would be right here at around $53,000, right? Well, if we go back and we have a look, I have a bunch of them marked. So starting from COVID, which we know was a bit of an outlier, if you have a look, and I'm just going to show you, this is just the data, it's not my opinion. If you look right here, we had this buy signal flash right here. So the low was 3,900. The next low that we got was only around that 8,700 area, right? We got another right here. What was the next low? Well, after we had that move, the next low only was around 9,000. Fast forward to here. We had this previous low at around 16,300. We got the buy signal. It was followed by a red month, so it doesn't mean we're going to go straight up. The next month was only 17,006. So the low was around 16,000-ish right here. And then here, it was about 17,000. So that actually held true, and we continued to the upside, right? We had another buy signal. This one actually didn't flash full on buy, so this was a little bit of a fake. We had the green, but we didn't get the buy. The buy signal flashes right here. I think you can clearly see we had a low at around 29,000, and our next low was up here at around 39,000, right? So here's another one that we had right here. So this low, that was basically the bottom, 15,005. We had this pump. Look at this massive sell-off right here. That was 19. So this low was 15. This was 19. Now keep in mind, we had this buy signal, but we went sideways for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. I think I said weeks before. If I said month, I meant to say weeks. My point is, we don't put in a lower low. Here's another one. Here's another one, right? So this low back here was 24,008, and this low was only about 25,000. Came very close, fell after that, but did not go as low. And obviously, here we go today. So if we have a look today, the low that we had right here was 53,700. So we got the buy signal. This does not mean that we can't, end up going back down. It does not mean that we can't close the CME futures gap. But what it does mean is you generally will not get a lower low than you got back here, and you will end up having a higher price move to the upside, okay? So I know it seems boring when you're looking at this day to day, but you have to just realize that these are good opportunities for accumulation, because at some point, these numbers, they're not going to be there anymore, So, if you're waiting for 48,000 or you want to try to catch that 57,000, we may get it. But ultimately, we still have a lot of momentum to the upside, even though it's showing on the short term, it's dwindled a bit, okay? And the other thing, the last bit I'll show you is I've been keeping a very close eye on this this pattern right here. So this is an interesting thing, you could say, oh, isn't this like a descending broadening wedge, kind of like what I showed you earlier? Well, it is, but it kind of had a bit of a deviation here where you could see we came down, but then we started building back up again, right? So this is kind of interesting, really, if you have a look at it, but ultimately there is mostly a downtrend on the DXY. So to have this invalidated, the DXY would pretty much have to break and hold above 106. If we do continue the breakdown to the downside, then that is going to be very good for things like risk assets and Bitcoin specifically. So we'll keep our eyes on that. But ultimately, not much has changed, but we did get that buy signal. And again, just because the hash ribbon indicator said buy, it doesn't literally mean buy today and it'll never go lower. But what it has shown us time and time again, you know, few deviations, COVID, obviously, that was a crazy black swan event. For the most part, I believe it was COVID, and there was one other instance in which it wicked a little bit lower. But every other time we've ever had the hash ribbons flashing a buy indicator, it has signaled continuation, and it has also let us know that it's possible for a little bit of a dip, which could be a great last opportunity to buy, but we never tend to put in, or very often do not put in, a lower low, which means that even if we do fill the CME futures gap, you're probably not going to see Bitcoin falling very much lower than that, and most likely not falling into the low 50s. You know, that would be very unique. It would definitely be you know, a very specific event. It would be something that we don't see that often, you know, ultimately. So that's it for me, guys. Just want to kind of break that down for you. Again, if you guys are looking to trade Blowfin, they did have their ongoing volume. They were giving away a bunch of prizes. If you guys missed that, definitely just use the link below, because they do have ongoing bonuses. And if you use the link, you will be eligible for that. Also, Meta Signals, if you want to get that lifetime access. I recommend the NFT, guys, especially while the price is cheap. You can do the trial. All right, they do a 14-week free trial, but totally up to you guys. Make sure you check out these tutorials popping up right here, right now. That's all I got to say today. So let me know what you guys think below. You know, if you found any value out of this video, obviously a like, comment, sharing helps out. Until next time, stay crypto, and of course, peace out.